good. Second piece. Okay, so there's our flyover, what I have and how I figured out, and I have to say I absolutely love it. I really love it. Turned out 10 times better, and I'll talk a little bit about why. Now, again, I know with your pieces, you're going to end up doing the same thing. You know, I did it once, and it was like, and then I took it all and restacked it all, and then I did it again. And then what I initially did was I had one row here, so I had a nice rectangle built. Ignore this. This is just some of the, once the seam allowances, when it's sewn together, gets in, it'll be perfect. But I had a rectangle, and what I did was I thought I was done. And then, like I said, I just wasn't completely happy with it. And so I then decided that I wanted to go a little higher. And then once I went a little higher with the sky, I decided I wanted to go a little wider. So I went a little wider. And then I was down here, of course, by the grass. And I thought, well, that's cool. But again, it just felt like very lovely, but I wanted more because I love this panel so much. And so then, of course, my philosophical juices, of course, and we all know, of course, the archetype of the lion and the lamb. There is religious significance. I typically am not a religious person, but there's definitely spiritual peace connotations with it as well. And so I started thinking about that as I kind of started building out a little lower. And what I came up with is, the title is, What Will We Choose to Be Between the Sky and the Dirt? And so what I wanted to do is I started building a little bit lower. Of course, all the pieces that had the actual animals in went below the grass. And I decided I wanted to taper it like a banner because I wanted it to be a giant banner. Um, and as I started to taper it, I took it back down to the sky. I tried to keep balance in it, as well as making sure I had a lot of the lion parts here. I have a lot of the lamb parts there. And so that's kind of where it kind of took me on its own. And hopefully yours will do the same, where it'll kind of start to speak to you and that whole creative process. So we've got this part done. I've got everything set out in rows as they're going to be sewed. And we want to make sure, of course, as you saw, and what I'll do is I will have Rich kind of zoom in so that we can see how all of the rows are all lined up. We got everything is even as it can be using the design wall. Obviously, I need a bigger design wall. So you can see these two line up, these two. So all of the rows all the way through line up. I did not make the panel portion. We'll go out a little bit here. I did not make the panel portion perfectly square and rectangle. I brought in some of my pieces into the panel just to kind of add interest. I tried to make sure to keep at least on the initial outside of the area cohesive with what was going on before I faded into other things. And that took a little work, and that's a wonderful part of the challenge when you're doing one of these. But it is done. I absolutely love it. And hopefully, like I said, your process will be the same, where you'll just disappear into it and have a wonderful, this took me approximately 5-ish hours. Um, so it took a little while, but I was a little OCD about it. So what's the next step? So on the design wall, we have it all set up. Now remember, I'm going to be doing more, which will be in future parts past the sewing together and all of that once we get the frame. together and attached to the panel, and then we'll talk about how I'm going to and how you can add things on the outside and deal with frames and borders and whatnot. So with this, the next part is going to be designating all of the rows. Rich, what did you call that? Yeah, so we got to geolocate all of the pieces so that when we sew all of these rows together, we've got, remember there's, to make one hexie, we have 2 rows. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 rows, okay? Now, obviously, it is not perfectly rectangle, perfectly square, so we're going to have a different amount going down. So here's how I geolocate. I get masking tape. I know some of you will be tempted to use blue painter's tape. I only did that once, and I will never do that again because blue painter's tape does not stick for the period of time that I want it to stick. So I do use masking tape. It's not going to leave a residue, but yet it's stronger than the blue painter's tape. So what I'm going to do is this. So we'll start over here. This is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8, row 9. I'm going to change that. I'm going to do alphabet first for the rows. So it'll be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, all the way over. And then I'll use the numbers going down vertically. So this will be A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, etc. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, etc. C1, C2, all the way through. Now, here's the thing that I want you to remember. To here, so the first A, B, C, D, it goes from top down. There are no open spots where I don't have hexies. But starting here, the hexies stop here and then pick back up down here. And so what I want to do is to make sure that when I label them, that I label them according to not only the rows vertically, but also horizontally. So here, if this is A, B, C, D, E, here, or I'm sorry, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, the one next to it is missing 1. 6, 7. I make sure that when I'm doing this next row with the missing pieces, if this is 7 here where it picks back up, I don't make this one that has missing areas here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then skip down to 5. I actually do 7 because this is 7 row. So that way, you know, as you once you get once we get, which will be in the next part, all of the rows pieced together, then when we actually sew row to row, we want to make sure that these are numbered so that way we know that we're not going to accidentally sew this one to this one and make it one row and it'll be messed up. I know that that makes sense even though it doesn't sound cohesive the way that I said it. So that's my process now. So I'm going to use the masking tape, use a Sharpie, don't use anything that will come off. Right on the roll and not the quilt. That's exactly it. And I'll do a bunch of them. And then what I do is I go back And when I put them on the piece, what I want you to do, can we squeeze in here? We're not going to put it near a seam because we're going to be piecing the row together. And I don't want it near an edge so that it's going to get caught in a seam allowance. We have 3 triangles. I put it in the middle of the middle triangle. So this guy right here. So, and that to me, I've found as I piece so many of these, always works best. So I want it kind of out of the way, dead center of that half of the hexie, so that way it's not in the way. Make sure it's on well, right? Again, you can imagine, those of you that have used painter's tape for some things, you can see you're going to get this all labeled, and what will happen is the painter's tape will fall off. So that's why masking tape is definitely the way to go. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do each row until everything is geolocated. Remember, we still keep our number based on horizontal rows, as well as our letters for vertical rows. That way you know placement. Okay? So that will be your next step. You're going to label all these. When we come back for our next part next week, what you're going to do is we are going to piece all of our rows. So I may actually already have like most of the rows pieced so that I can show you how to piece one row, and then we'll go straight into piecing the rows together and how I like to do that. Now, one of the things to remember is, just like when we pieced our half hexies together, I do like to use that wonderful acorn glue. I just think it works fantastic rather than pins. I want these babies to match up perfectly, and with the glue, you can make them match up perfectly. All right, everybody, so that's our next part. I hope yours is turning out amazing as well. If you've been waiting for the next part, I know some of you are already going ahead, which is awesome. I'm getting some of the amazing pictures of your pieces as you're placing them and getting them in order. So if you have the opportunity, I would love for you to email some of the pictures of your pieces to quiltersapothecary@me.com. And then we can post them in one of our future episodes as we're putting this together. I would really like to see how yours are coming along. As always, thank you for joining us for this wonderful Kaleidoscope piece along. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we will see you all down the road. Goodbye, everybody.